Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. Looking around the room, I couldn't help but smile. David deserved this happiness. He'd had a rough couple of years, and I was surprised to be here at all. I called him when I got the invitation. "Are you sure about this?" He even laughed. "Yeah, I'm sure. After all, if it wasn't for you, I never would have found Elena. I owe you a debt of gratitude. If you were any other man, I might be dead or in jail by now. You helped me when the most natural thing in the world would have been to turn away. So I went to his wedding. Even sat at the head table, though I had no part in the ceremony. His new wife hugged me when we met and whispered in my ear, "He told me about your story, but I'd like to hear it from you. I've never heard anything like it." I smiled as I watched them. He was 42, she was 46, but they acted like teenagers around each other. I wished them the best. I was dancing with the bride when I saw her. I just stopped moving. Elena looked up in confusion and followed my gaze. I tried to pull free, but she gripped my arm tightly. "Calm down. Please don't ruin my wedding." I exhaled loudly, trying to gather my thoughts. What the hell is she doing here? Does David know? If he doesn't know, he's probably going to ruin everything. He knows. He really did invite her. He says he did it for you. Now calm down and let's finish this dance. We did, but I was already thinking of just leaving. David was waiting by the table when I walked over. I looked right into his face. "I can't believe you invited your ex-wife to your wedding. What the hell got into your head?" He shook his head, smiling slightly. "I didn't invite her to the wedding, just the reception. And I invited her for you. Tonight you're going to sit down and talk to her at least for a few minutes. I don't want you to do it for me. I want you to do it for you and for her. Neither of you will ever get over it if you don't. But I got to tell you, kid, she really loves you." I sat there pondering, tormented. David and Elena took turns staying with me to make sure I didn't leave. I must have annoyed them with my complaints until Elena snapped. "Will you please shut up? For a man who went off to war, you're just a wimp when it comes to her. Pull yourself together, talk to her, get it over with, and then leave if you want to. You're letting us all down. And I want my memories of tonight to not include babysitting a whiny little boy masquerading as a big, strong man." Then I realized she was right. Plus, she had gotten me drunk on 4 very strong drinks pretty close together. Sarah chose that exact moment to appear next to me, tears in her eyes and her hand outstretched. "Will you dance with me, please?" I could have been cruel and yelled at her. I could have sat there and ignored her. I could have gotten up and walked away. Instead, I took her hand. We floated out onto the dance floor, her achingly familiar body pressed against mine as we moved slowly to the song the band was playing. I felt her tremble slightly and lowered my gaze to see tears falling onto my jacket. I started to pull away, trying to speak, but she brought her hand to my lips. "Please don't talk. Just hold me and let me pretend, if only for a moment, that you still love me." And therein lay the crux of my problem. I really did still love her. So we moved slowly across the dance floor, each immersed in our own memories and thoughts. I went through my mind, thinking of all the women I thought I loved, including her, and wondered why she had to be the one I wanted, the one I was going to spend the rest of my life with, only to find out she was never mine. That's why it hurt so much. I hugged her and let the memories continue. I saw it coming. I just didn't believe it. He was about 5'7" or 5'8", weighed maybe 150, and had to be in his early 40s. I was 31, 6'2", 210, mostly muscle. He rushed toward me, his 2 friends trying to slow him down. I was feeling pretty good. It was Thursday, I had just gotten my paycheck, and my girlfriend was supposed to meet me for drinks and dinner. I got an early start, had a couple beers while I waited, and chatted with my friends. I didn't know him, had never seen him before in my life. He positioned himself right in front of me. I was wondering what he wanted when I saw his hand move. It started somewhere around his knees, gaining momentum as it rose. I saw his hand clench into a fist, moving so slowly that I could tell he had probably never thrown a punch before. I remember thinking that whatever he hit had better be soft or he would hurt his hand. When it connected with my eye, I was so engrossed in watching that it didn't occur to me to defend myself. I fell down, and he started trying to kick me. I had been out of the service long enough to let him slip under my guard, but not so long that instinct and training didn't kick in. I rolled over and grabbed his leg, dropping him to the ground beside me, quickly securing him. His two buddies tried to jump in, but they were outnumbered, so they enlisted the help of the bartender. My cousin was the bartender and owner of the place. He saw this cheap shot and just kept polishing the glass he was holding. I regained my normal breathing and looked down at him. "What the hell is wrong with you, man? Do you have some kind of death wish, attacking strangers half your age and twice your size? I should tie you in a knot and send you home to your wife with bruises." He continued to struggle. "Let me go, you lowlife. You need a lesson in how to treat married women." I stared at him, wondering if he was high or just delusional. Pushing him away, I jumped to my feet. "Mister, I'm not interfering with anyone's marriage, but if you come at me again, I guarantee you pain. Do you understand me?" Apparently he didn't understand, because he got up with a yell and another swing. I threw one punch. He dropped like a stone and lay there. I looked at his buddies. "Get him out of here, and I think I can say on behalf of the management that he needs to drink somewhere else. Tell him that attacking younger, stronger, and more experienced strangers is a sure way to not live to a ripe old age." They wanted to object, but the bartender interrupted them. Eventually they carried him out, and we laughed for a few minutes until my date showed up. She saw my bruise starting to appear and went into protective mode. "What happened, dear?" I joked. "Some guy came over and accused me of being involved with his wife. He hit me before I could react." Sad, really. He was in his early 40s, short in stature, and had no idea how to fight. But he had nerve. If some guy's messing around with his wife, he'd better be on his guard. As I recounted the episode, her face grew paler and paler. I noticed this and tried to reassure her. "Relax, honey. There's nothing wrong with me. But if you feel like kissing it to make it better, I won't mind." She immediately covered my face with light kisses and then pulled away with a smile. "There you go. Mom made everything better. No mean old man can hit my sweetheart. He had to be a pretty tough man to attack you. Didn't he notice all those fine muscles?" She started rubbing my bicep. I found out later that she just wanted me to describe him again. He was actually older than me, short in stature, with a small belly. He didn't have any fighting skills, but he had a lot of nerve. If his wife is cheating on him, it could be really bad if he finds the right guy. Sarah fell silent again, then excused herself to the restroom, saying she wasn't feeling well. My cousin Connor, the bartender, heard most of the conversation. It's always the quiet ones, you know? He was probably living his version of the American dream, happy as can be, and then he finds out his wife is, well, you know, those are the ones to watch out for, the ones who can hurt you in a fit of rage. I've seen it 100 times or more. I hope you've scared him enough to leave you alone." I nodded, agreeing completely. I hope he finds the guy and deals with him. I've seen a few people go down in the service after getting Dear John letters. Still, he'd better get his facts straight and be careful. The man's not much for fighting. Sarah reappeared, looking sad. "Sorry, honey. The hospital called. There was a big accident on the highway, and they're short-staffed. They've been calling everyone in, so I'm gonna have to go. I'll call you tomorrow if I'm not too tired. Love you." She kissed me on the cheek and walked out. This had happened before, as she was a trauma nurse at the local hospital. Fortunately for me, she worked 12-hour shifts the first half of the week, so she was available Thursday through Saturday. I, on the other hand, worked out of town a lot. No, I don't have a high-paying executive job that has me flying around the country solving problems for megacorporations. I'm a master blacksmith and ornamental ironworker. That's right, fire and steel, hammer and anvil. My dad was the guy I was just talking about, jetting around the country and sometimes the world, making his company big money. He was almost never around, so my mom raised my sister and me pretty much alone. And in my opinion, she did it pretty well. When I was 12, my dad decided he didn't need a middle-aged, middle-class housewife and traded her in for a newer model. She was heartbroken, but my grandfather, who never liked him, was furious. My father tried to rush the divorce through, trying to deprive Mom of her rightful share. Grandpa intervened, spent some of his own money, found her the second-best divorce attorney in the state, only because the first one was too busy, and burned Dad to the ground. Dad fought until Grandpa threatened to sue his company for violating the morals clause. His new woman was his assistant at one time. When he saw his career threatened, he folded like a cheap tent, and Mom walked away in good shape, albeit heartbroken. Dad moved to the West Coast, and we hardly saw him again until he came to my high school graduation and offered me admission to one of the best colleges on the West Coast if I agreed to move there. I politely declined until he insisted, at which point I told him exactly what I thought of him and physically escorted him out of our house. I never saw him again. From then on, Mom remarried a decent man who loved her very much. Surprisingly, she ended up pregnant, and at age 15, I became a big brother. I admired the man, and my sister idolized him. He offered to help pay for college but didn't insist when I decided not to continue my education. Instead, I joined the military and spent 4 years in the service, including time overseas. By the time I got out, I had a better understanding of how the world worked and was in school on military benefits while working for my grandfather. You guessed it, he was a master blacksmith, and that's all he did all his life. Even at 62, he had arms like tree trunks and a back that could bend steel. My dad couldn't leave fast enough, but I was old enough to swing a hammer. Grandpa would stack iron bars in the backyard of his shop and reward me depending on how straight I could hammer them. Sometimes I bent them in ways he never intended, but by the time I was 13, they always came out true. At 14, I became his apprentice, working summers and after school if he was working close to home. There wasn't much call for ornamental ironwork overseas, but the unit I served with was assigned to construction duties, and I spent my time building and repairing metal structures for our base. When the reinforced doors I fabricated saved several lives during an attack, including that of our captain, the guys soon became eager helpers. We always had the most secure facilities around. The local metalworkers were skilled craftsmen, and I learned their techniques, sometimes working alongside them to build schools and hospitals. I learned everything I could from them. Grandpa took me into the business as soon as I got out. Soon I was doing the detail work for him, usually just me and an apprentice or two. The big jobs were usually handled by him. One of the worst days of my life came when he passed away, killed by a drunk driver. He was crossing the street when the guy hit him head-on. They estimated the driver was traveling at 65 when they collided. Grandpa was in his '66 Ford pickup truck. No airbags, no head restraints. His neck was broken, and doctors said he probably died instantly. No matter how he died, he was gone at age 66. He was going to retire as soon as he finished his current job. He and Grandma had bought an RV, intending to travel the country. Due to his impending retirement, he had gradually transferred the company into my name, so I wouldn't have to deal with a lot of paperwork after his death. I was 27. Ornamental ironwork is a fascinating occupation. A master blacksmith can make excellent money, depending on the type of work. My company specialized in custom gates, railings, and decorative metalwork for high-end homes and commercial buildings. This skill isn't easy to learn, and we were the best in the region. My grandfather, before he died, had made a deal with several historic preservation societies to restore the ironwork on buildings that were over 100 years old. Some of these structures had wrought iron that had deteriorated or been damaged. I had a crew of 2 master smiths and 3 or 4 apprentices at each major site. We paid the apprentices from $15 to $20 an hour, depending on their skill level. As they progressed, their wages increased. Of course, it took years to become a master, but as I said, the pay was excellent. The question arose as to whether I could keep the contracts, but I convinced them to believe in me. Look, Grandpa was practically an administrator before he passed away. The same craftsmen with the same skills are still working. I guarantee the work won't suffer. They ended up keeping us, mostly because the company was in my name by then, they'd never had complaints before, and they knew it would be hard to replace us. Good blacksmiths are rare, and really skilled ones are even rarer. I hated being a manager without being able to work the forge on a regular basis. I solved the problem by hiring my sister Hannah. She could actually do decent metalwork and could spot shoddy craftsmanship a mile away. She had just graduated with a business degree, and there weren't many good jobs available, so she took the position for the experience. We still had to have meetings and check the books, which we planned to do in conjunction with weekly family dinners. My stepfather Robert was an accountant, and Grandpa had liked him so much that he gave him our business when he married Mom. Grandma was always there, and she and Mom participated in discussions, bringing years of experience to lean on. My younger brother Tommy was 15, and I had already promised him a job for the next summer. He would start at the bottom, tending the forge like all the apprentices. He had an amazing knack for math, and I was sure he wouldn't become a blacksmith long-term. It didn't matter, accountants were valuable people too. I was 30 years old when I met Sarah one Thursday night. She came to Connor's bar with some friends. We both felt an immediate attraction, almost love at first sight. Connor, my cousin and the owner of the bar, invited live bands on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. The place was a blue-collar joint, so they played mostly country music, and some of it was even good. I watched Sarah dance a few quick numbers and admired her grace. She walked up to the bar just as the band started a slow song and ordered drinks for her table. When the music started, she grabbed my hand. I don't want to waste a good slow song. And yes, I'd love to dance with you. Thank you for asking. I was so surprised I couldn't even speak and stumbled after her while my friends laughed. The slow dance with Sarah should have been mandatory viewing for anyone wanting to learn how it should be done. Of course, if that had happened, there would have been some uncomfortable moments for a lot of guys. This woman just pressed herself against you, leaving no space between you, moving with you so gracefully that it felt like you were alone, except for the extremely pleasant warmth and feel of her body. I think I fell in love with her before the first song was even over. She was tall, about 5'9", and when she put on her heels, she could look me in the eye. When the dance was over, she wouldn't let go of my hand and pulled me to her table. I met her friends, but I still can't tell you their names. The band stopped 45 minutes before closing time, and we were able to talk without yelling. Her friends were tired of waiting and were urging her to go home. Damn it, Sarah. Kiss the guy, get his number, and let's go. One of her friends said, and she did. You never forget the first kiss from someone you know you're going to love. Will you be here tomorrow? She asked, pulling away. I just nodded. Meet me out front at 7:30. Take me somewhere nice for dinner. Bye. And she was gone, leaving traces of her perfume on my clothes and the taste of her lips on mine. I got up and wandered back to the bar, where I took some good-natured ribbing from the guys. Not a bad catch, Bandit, Connor laughed. If she held out a hoop, I think you'd jump through it. I got that nickname because my real name was Marcus Thompson, but Connor started calling me Bandit when we were kids after some old Western character, and it stuck. I didn't care why, I didn't care how. I cared that she chose me, but I was incredibly wary. You see, I didn't have the best track record with women. I'd had 2 serious relationships after high school. The first ended when she explicitly told me she wasn't going to wait for me while I was in the service. I'm 19. You may not come back. I don't want such an uncertain future. I really care about you. And if I'm still single when you come back, maybe we can start over. Well, I hated it, but I understood. We met again when I got home, but we had both changed, and the magic was gone. We realized this pretty early on and parted as friends. The second one I met in college. She was the star of the volleyball team, tall, muscular, attractive, and the most arrogant woman I had ever met. Someone had once told her she was special, and she believed it for the rest of her life. The volleyball team won several championships at a school where other sports programs weren't as successful. This made her the queen bee, and both staff and students catered to her every whim. Everyone in town knew who Victoria Sterling was. I wasn't bad-looking either. 6'1", thanks to military training and years at the forge, I was as solid as the steel I shaped, and I even had decent muscle definition. Not that I ever took my shirt off except on the job. Sandy brown hair with hints of red from working near the forge so much, and blue eyes that were so pale they almost seemed gray. I also had permanent calluses and scars on my hands and forearms from metalwork. The beauty of blacksmithing is that much of it can be done even in cold weather, in heated shops, so we worked year-round unless conditions were truly extreme. Victoria was so used to getting her way that it shocked her when someone turned her down. It just so happened that I was the one who said no that day. We were at a popular bar and grill off campus. The food was delicious, the prices were reasonable, and the place got very crowded during happy hour. I sat at a large table by myself. Everyone else was busy with the crowd. They had really good food, and I was halfway through a great cheeseburger when she and her entourage walked in, 2 more women and 4 guys. Looking around, she soon discovered that the only available table belonged to me. She approached me. "My friends and I need a table, and you're alone. Would you mind giving it up so we can sit down?" She smiled falsely, assuming I'd be happy to disappear for her pleasure. "Yes," I said with a smile, continuing to eat. She assumed that yes meant I would leave, but yes meant I was fine with them needing a table. So I kept eating. After a minute or 2, she snorted, "Are you going to leave or what? We're waiting. When I'm done or a smaller table becomes available, I'll gladly give it up. Or, since I have so much room, you can all join me. You can go stand at the bar." One of the guys said loudly, "Maybe I should make you leave." He looked to be about 5'10" and in pretty good shape, but his posture and attitude said he didn't know how to handle himself. I looked at him for a minute, then took a big sip of iced tea, ate a few fries and sighed. "Okay, I see 3 possible outcomes. 1, you somehow managed to take me down, and people think you're a jerk since you started a fight with someone minding their own business. 2, I'll handle you easily in front of your friends, and everyone will think you deserved it for being a first-class idiot. 3, you can leave me alone while I finish the last few bites, and I'll be gone. Why don't you let your friends sit down while you go order drinks? I'll be gone by then." He started to get angry, but Victoria watched this exchange with amazement. She held up her hand. "Stop it, Brian. I think this could end badly for you. Do as he said, order us drinks. We'll be right here if this gentleman wants to share." By then, I was done. I stood up, pushing back the chair for the girl closest to me. "Please take the table. I'm already finished anyway. Have a nice evening." I reached for my cane, which was leaning against the table. My leg was in a cast, the result of one overzealous apprentice trying to show off. He ended up dropping a 50-pound piece of steel stock on my foot, breaking 2 bones. That's why I needed the table. I couldn't stand at the bar. Her eyes widened. "Please stay and let us buy you a beer. Thank you for the offer, but I have to decline. I can't drink right now because it might interfere with my medication." Brian came back, saw the cast, and smirked. I realized he thought it would be easy to handle me. Sure enough, he followed me to the parking lot. "You think that cast will save you? It'll only make it easier." "I'm going to. I'd heard enough." I turned, adjusting my grip on the cane, and drove the rubber tip right into the soft area just above his groin. He dropped like a stone, making a sound like a deflating balloon. I turned back to my truck. "Don't get up until I'm out of the parking lot. If you do, I'll assume you intend to hurt me, and you won't like my response. Grow up before you mess with someone not as patient as me." He was still lying there when I drove away. I didn't know it, But Victoria and her friends had noticed his absence and came out to find him. They managed to witness our little conversation. They picked Brian up, dusted him off, and Victoria pestered everyone in the restaurant for information about me. Victoria took the trouble to find me. She didn't have much luck because I was mostly in night classes and didn't socialize with the university crowd. I was older, much more mature and goal-oriented from military service rather than the typical college experience. She eventually tracked me down by hanging around the bar and grill. When I walked in one evening, she stood up, pointing to an empty chair. "Great, you're here. I saved a seat for you." She pointed to the only empty chair at her table. I looked around the room. There were other empty seats, and was about to head over to one of them when she put her hand on my shoulder. "Please," she said, not using the word often, "just for a moment. We owe you an apology. Brian was an idiot, and that's one of the many reasons he doesn't hang around with us anymore." I thought I caught sincerity in her voice, and I sat down. To my surprise, I discovered that she and her friends were not airheads. One was studying political science and had gotten a good offer from a lobbying group upon graduation. Another was preparing to attend law school. A third was going to work for her father after getting her MBA. Victoria was majoring in sports psychology, a degree that would come in handy after her career as a professional volleyball player was over. It was a pleasure to watch them handle admirers while discussing business and occasionally asking for my opinion. When I could, I answered their questions. When I couldn't, I admitted it. I told them I was too busy with my business to follow many sports, especially the newer extreme sports. This led to questions about my line of work, especially from the business major. "Wow, you're talking about a niche market. Is that profitable? What's your business plan? How much of the market do you control?" I raised my hand to stop her. "It's very good money. I may never be rich, but I'll be very comfortable. My advertising is word of mouth, and my kind of work isn't affordable for everyone. I work with multimillion-dollar properties most of the time. Right now, I have 2 big projects for real estate developers, plus restoration contracts for several historic preservation societies. With the crews I have now, I've got almost 2 years of work lined up. I'm flying out tomorrow to talk to preservation groups in 2 other states about doing similar work for them. With my current crews, that will add another 2 or 3 years of work. I'll probably interview and hire some local smiths to get projects started on time. Even when the economy went south, since I usually work for wealthy clients or well-funded institutions, I still had steady work." Everyone sat back, surprised. Hannah, who was majoring in business, spoke first. "I'm writing a paper on the viability of artisan businesses. I think I'll scrap everything I already have and do a paper just on your business, if you'll let me." "Please." I thought for a second and grinned. "Sure. It'll be more free advertising for the business. Just be warned that most of the work is out in the field, so you may have to travel if you want an in-depth analysis." She grinned. "Not a problem. One of the perks of having wealthy parents is expense money, especially if I tell them it's school-related." Victoria frowned at the thought of her following me around but prudently said nothing. At that moment, I found out later that she tried to talk Hannah out of it. Hannah refused. "It's a good opportunity, Victoria. The report will look good on my application, and I don't plan on dating him." She smirked slightly before continuing. "What he's planning is another matter entirely. Let me be honest. She was a beautiful, determined woman used to getting her way. I was more calm and non-confrontational, inclined to go along unless it conflicted with my values. The inevitable happened, and we became involved, beginning a fairly intense 2-year relationship. I kept her off balance, realizing early on that the only way to keep things fair was to never let her get too comfortable. If she got too secure, her my way or else attitude would come out. I explained it to her. "You may be the queen at school, but to me, you're just another girl. You're beautiful, and I'm attracted to you, but I'll never be your servant. I look at a serious relationship as a partnership with give and take. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses. In an ideal relationship, the weaknesses and strengths should balance each other out, and each partner should take the lead from time to time. Do you understand? She smiled at me, half smirking. Oh, I understand, and I intend to be your queen before we're done, just as you will be my king. Those were the words I needed to hear. So for 18 months, I climbed the mountain, only to find that there was nothing but sheer rock at the top. I think she would have been willing to be intimate on the first date if I had pushed, but I made her wait, which was part of my plan to keep her off balance. We would escalate to a certain point, but I always stopped, which frustrated her greatly. Eventually, she got tired of it. One night, when I brought her to the brink and stopped, she exploded. Damn it, Marcus. Time to step up and be with me. What's the matter? Don't you think I'm attractive? I can give you some references. Or are you afraid you won't be man enough to please me? Don't worry, baby. I'm ready to teach you what I like. I think she realized she was going too far, judging by the look on her face. She started to try to apologize, but I interrupted her. Don't worry about it, Victoria. I've already had several of your acquaintances describe to me in great detail how skilled you are. I'm not as experienced as you, but I've never had any complaints. It's very kind of you to offer to share your experience with me. Just like in volleyball, the more you practice, the better you play, and we already know how good you are at it. I paused, thinking I might have gone a little overboard. As kind as your offer is, I think I'll decline. I bid you good night. She begged and pleaded as I left her apartment and even tried to physically stop me. She was a big girl, strong, but I had been swinging hammers for too many years, and I easily broke her grip. I didn't see her for 2 weeks, despite her calls, texts, and emails. It just so happened that I had a deadline and had to work weekends anyway. Her last 2 emails were pretty nasty. She wasn't used to rejection and didn't handle it well. Back in town, I ran into Hannah and another friend at the bar and grill. I was sitting alone when they came over to my table. The friend grinned widely. So is it true that Victoria dumped you? Hannah saw my face tense up and giggled. Look at his expression. I bet if the truth be told, he dumped her. Didn't you, Marcus? I adopted an indifferent expression. I'd say it was a mutual breakup. Let's just say our ideas about relationships were too different. Ha! She said. I'd guess it was more like her telling you to jump, and you explaining that you didn't like hoops. Whatever it was, it shook her up a lot. She's been difficult ever since you disappeared. Coach threatened to bench her if she didn't get her head together. Just then Victoria walked in with a basketball player. She looked at us sitting together and stormed over, leaving the basketball player in her wake. He followed her, trying to take her hand. For the second time, she pulled away from him. Let go of me. What part of, we're just friends, don't you understand? The look on his face told me that wasn't exactly what she had implied. He was about to object angrily when Hannah nearly fell off her chair with laughter. What was it Bugs Bunny used to say? Oh yeah. What a maroon. You're not even out of college yet, and your chances of making the pros are slim at best. Depending on your major, it could be years before you make decent money. Marcus here owns his own successful business and has for years. He makes well over 6 figures, and that number is growing every year. Not bad for a blue-collar guy. He was about to object angrily when the other friend interjected into the conversation. Whatever you're thinking, stop. Look at him, he didn't get those arms at the gym. Besides, he's been in combat, so he knows how to handle trouble. He probably wouldn't have any problem taking you apart. Maybe you want to sit at the bar while he and Victoria talk. Come on. Hannah and I will keep you company. They walked him away, still complaining. Victoria sat down and just stared at me for about 3 minutes before she spoke. The worst thing about people spoiling you is that it works. I know I'm arrogant and a total control freak. I know I can't stand being told no. But Marcus, I'm a good person deep down. I can learn. Why don't we start over? I sat there thinking. She was the kind of person who didn't know how to appreciate silence, so she started again. I regret that night. I was conditioned to thinking I was a great prize and should be appreciated. I know I'm just a girl. A pretty girl. But there are plenty of prettier, better built, smarter, and more understanding girls around. Hannah and her friend, for example. They've made no secret that if we really break up, they're interested. But they'll never love you the way I do, Marcus. They'll never respond the way I respond when you touch them. If you want to wait, I'll wait. You set the pace, I'll follow your lead. For months later, she wanted to know where we were going. They didn't win nationals that year. She blamed it on me, saying I was distracting her with relationship demands and keeping her energy level low. She was due to graduate and had a very attractive offer to join a professional beach volleyball tour. The pay was pretty good, but as she explained, the real money was in endorsements, personal appearances, and television. She wanted to work for 3 years to save enough money to continue her studies toward a PhD. After several long conversations, we decided the smartest thing to do was to get engaged. She was thrilled when I proposed and gave her a ring. We decided to hold off on getting married until after her first year of professional play. I hoped she would be fed up by then and come back to focus on her studies. I could afford to pay for her education. She was from a single-parent family, and her father couldn't afford to help her. We spent a wonderful month together. She traveled with me from job to job, getting to know the cities we visited while I worked, and then focused on keeping me thoroughly exhausted every night. For the first time in my life, I struggled to lift heavy pieces of steel. My crew would chuckle and tell me that if I didn't get some rest after work, I would regain my strength. That's why I pay you guys to swing the heavy hammers. I joke. There's no way I'm giving up my evening activities now. Get that steel over to the forge. When she left, I felt really messed up. She clung to me and cried like a baby. I had to practically pull her away from me so she could get on the plane. It was really hard because I didn't want her to leave either. If you don't like it, honey, come home. You know I have money for your tuition, so you don't have to worry about that. She sighed and hugged me tighter. All my life, people have taken care of me. My father, then school, now you. For once, I need to prove that I can take care of myself. Besides, I signed a contract. I have to honor this season. I didn't like it, but I understood. The first year was hard for both of us. She performed very well. She and her partner took top rankings as they won more and more matches. Their prize money grew substantially. I watched on TV, and I didn't like the uniforms they wore at all. It's spelled out in the contract, honey. The manufacturer offered us an endorsement campaign because of our popularity. It's good money, honey. You don't mind, do you? How could I not support her? It was affecting our time together, but we were managing. It got to the point where we were only together once a month for 3 days. I was counting the days until the end of the season. She came home and we tried to catch up. Mom hinted at grandchildren. It seemed my sister and I had something in common. We both preferred women, which explained why Hannah hung out with us so often. She wanted to meet any of Victoria's friends. Hannah had managed to connect with one briefly, but they broke up because neither wanted to get into a serious relationship. Eventually, she found a nice, quiet woman, and they got married. In addition to nagging me, after Mom came to terms with Hannah's choice, she started hinting to them that they should either adopt a child or consider other options. They were thinking about it. After 4 wonderful weeks, Victoria became moody. I put up with as much as I could before confronting her. What's going on, Victoria? Don't try to brush me off. We're going to sit here until you tell me. She was quiet for a while before telling me. I signed a contract for another season. They doubled our money, and the endorsements are worth a lot more. I'm sorry, honey, but I have to do this for me. Please don't be angry. I wasn't angry, I was furious. We argued most of the time until she left. Why can't you be more supportive? Just this 1 year, I swear to you. I've been supportive all last year. You made promises then, remember? So much for your word when it comes to money. Wrong words. She exploded into a screaming match. I was only half listening to her. and after about 10 minutes, she realized I wasn't hanging on every word. She stopped immediately. In a quiet voice, she tried again. I guess I deserve that. Tell you what, I'll write it into a contract. If I don't quit next year, the engagement is off. Please, Marcus. It really means a lot to me. I just looked at her. You don't need a contract. If you don't quit next year, I'm done. Do you understand? She went a little pale and made a bunch of promises. Promises she didn't keep. At the beginning of the next year, things got even better for them. Her partner Jessica called and thanked me for letting Victoria play. This is my last year on tour, so if she doesn't find a new partner, she'll be done too. I plan to teach. I've already found work as a high school math teacher and volleyball coach in a small town in California. I've always been a fan of small town life. Maybe I'll find a nice, quiet guy and remarry. But if we had an arrangement like yours, maybe I'd still be married. I didn't know she was divorced. I knew she was married and that her husband didn't like her being away. When Victoria told me this, I threw her a questioning look. She took the hint and fell silent. What arrangement, Jessica? The way I said it made her pause. You know, you're understanding. I let the silence linger, and she got nervous. I'm sorry. I didn't make myself clear. I didn't mean understanding. I meant your agreement. She's very lucky to have you. I have to go now. Watch us on TV. The whole conversation made me feel uncomfortable. The first time Victoria was home, I asked her about it. Don't worry about it, honey. She's gotten a little scattered since the divorce. I think it hurt her more than she wants to admit. Believe me, I won't make the same mistakes she did. I love you too much. When I asked her what those mistakes were, she was evasive. I pressed on, and she finally admitted that Jessica had been involved with one of the men on the tour, and her husband found out. You have my word, honey. I will never hurt you like that. I have too much to lose. She usually called every Monday and Tuesday, but I never heard from her, even though I called and left messages. The next week, I responded the same way, not picking up the phone once out of the 10 times she called. The following week, she came home unscheduled, furious. After she ranted about me not answering, I told her I was just following her lead. We were both angry, but it ended with me telling her to take her Spanish boyfriend and do whatever she wanted with him. She turned so pale I thought she was going to pass out. By then, I had reached my limit with her, so I got up and left. 2 days later, she tracked me down at the work site and begged me to let her talk. Victoria kept telling me for 2 days that there was nothing there, and if I was that unhappy, she would never compete again. She swore on everything she could think of that she would quit for good when the season was over. In hindsight, you could say she was reading from a script, but they were the right words at the right time, and I believed her. She did 2 more photo shoots, both times with the golfer. It started when I needed new tires for my truck, so I went to a dealer in the town I was working in. It took over an hour, and I headed across the street for lunch. After lunch, I had to wait another 10 minutes for them to finish, and I looked at the magazines, casually flipping through them. My interest was piqued by a golf magazine from 2 weeks ago. There was a profile of Juan Pablo showing him on and off the course. In the picture that caught my eye, he was sitting in the bleachers watching a beach volleyball game, then kissing one of the winning players. The article quoted him as saying that he went to every competition his schedule allowed to support his girlfriend. You guessed it, the player was Victoria. I was beyond furious. I would purposely miss her calls and flew to her next match. She and Jessica always shared a room, and I got there around 7. Jessica opened the door and turned pale when she saw me. Victoria wasn't there. I called her in Jessica's presence. She was glad to hear from me. Hi, darling, where have you been? I was beginning to worry that you had given up on me. I could never give up on you, honey. Did I catch you at dinner? I heard noise in the background. Yes, Jessica and I are in the hotel dining room. The food is really good. I managed to chat with her for a few minutes while Jessica grew increasingly pale. I hung up the phone and smiled at Jessica. Jessica, Did I ever tell you I was in the military? I spent time overseas in situations where I had to be very decisive. I won't hurt you, Jessica, but if I don't get the truth out of you right now, I'll make sure you never walk properly or use your hands like you used to. No one wants a disabled volleyball player or coach. I'll definitely go to jail, but not before I deal with Victoria and her Latin lover. It's your choice, but if you take the easy way out, now's the time to start talking. Would I have done it? No, but at that moment I was very angry. Jessica must have thought I was serious, judging by the terrified expression on her face. She was talking so fast I had to make her slow down. It started at the end of the first season, not with him but with another volleyball player. No love, she said. Just stress relief. She admitted she used to do the same thing until her husband caught her. She pleaded, but the damage was done, and he divorced her. Victoria connected with Juan at her first photo shoot, but apparently, the physical contact was too much temptation. She told me you were okay with it, Marcus. Said you were doing the same thing while you were traveling for work. She said you guys had come to an agreement. She was free to satisfy her needs, and you were doing the same. She also told me that it would be over when the season ended and kept talking about how happy she would be when you got married. She hung her head. I now know there was no agreement. Where is she now? Her eyes grew huge. Please, Marcus. Let me call her and get her back here so you can talk. I'm sure you can work things out. Tell me right now, or you'll have at least a broken arm to add to your problems. I stood up, and she recoiled in horror. They're at his hotel across town. He's playing in a tournament here. She gave me the room number. They might not be there. They might be at the dinner event. I grabbed her firmly and pushed her against the wall, pressing my face close to hers. If you warn her, I'll come back much angrier. Do we understand each other? She nodded so fast I was afraid she'd hurt herself. I stood in the lobby and watched them enter the hotel hand in hand and head for the elevators. I had the room number and I could have waited, but I knew what they were doing, so I didn't see the point in waiting for them to get comfortable. I gave them 3 minutes and then used some skills I'd learned in the military to get past the lock. She looked back, recognized me, and nearly fainted. He was so intoxicated he was trying to act tough. I quickly stopped him by spinning him around and securing his arm. Hold still, you idiot. If you resist, this is going to be much worse. Do you understand me? Good. Now tell me how long you've been having fun. And if you lie, I'll know. 3, maybe 4 months. That doesn't mean anything, man. Calm down. So you've been together that long, knowing she was engaged, and you thought it was okay? I read that you got engaged too, and she's expecting you in Spain. I wonder if she'll think it's meaningless. Let's call her and find out. By this time, he was begging. Victoria had put the bed between us and was trying to get dressed. She still didn't say a word. I realized I was running out of time. There were people in the hallway, and I was not known for staying calm. I let go of him and he stood up. I hit him once, hard enough to put him down but not permanently damage him. Try swinging that golf club now. He collapsed to the floor, and I looked at Victoria. Keep the ring, it doesn't matter to me anymore. Come back when you get up the courage and I'll pack your things. Don't try to talk. We have nothing to say to each other anymore. I walked out the door, took the elevator downstairs, and called for the manager. I apologized, said I was clumsy and had fallen through the door of room 418, explained that my girlfriend and I had been visiting, and he was standing outside the door and could get hurt. I gave him my credit card number, saying I'd be happy to pay for the repairs and any medical bills. He wanted me to stay, but I told him I really needed to catch a plane, and he could call if he needed me. I found out the next day when I watched a small portion of the tournament he was playing in. The announcers made a big deal out of his injury, saying he might miss the rest of the season, explaining that it was just an accident. The rumor mill in both sports kicked into high gear immediately, and he used his injury as an excuse to fly home. The following season, announcers discussed his new single status. I didn't say a word to anyone, but many other golfers and announcers were staying at the same hotel, and it was impossible to keep quiet. Jessica and Victoria played the next 3 games poorly, losing each time. At the end of the season, Jessica actually retired, and Victoria signed with a new partner, fresh out of college. She played 4 more seasons before quitting and getting her PhD. For about 3 months, she tried to get me to talk to her, telling my mom that she was flying in and we would talk even if she had to force me. My mom laughed and told her off, but she never flew in. That was it. Not very original, the same thing probably happened 1,000 times every day all over the world. But it was my world that was shattered. For 2 years, I had a deep distrust when dealing with women. Then I met Sarah and came back to life. As I mentioned, she worked as a trauma nurse at the local hospital. 12-hour shifts on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and on call every other week. I thought it was fate because all she did was work, and I was usually out of town for at least 4 days, so our free time usually overlapped. We got off to a slow start. A few dinners out, dancing at better clubs than the bar where we met, we watched a few romantic movies, went to a museum, a baseball game. She was up for anything. But then again, it was only a matter of time before I looked into those big, beautiful eyes and would fall all over myself trying to please her. We never saw each other on the days she worked, although she always called me when she had a break. She lived with 2 other nurses, and they said they had agreed never to bring their boyfriends home. One of us is always working, and the other is usually sleeping, so we keep you guys out so you don't get distracted. Plus, last year, before we made the rules, one stole a boyfriend while the other was sleeping. I had to replace them both. So no boyfriends, baby. Rules are rules. We were together almost from the time I got home from work until she needed to go home to get ready for work. I got tired of renting motel rooms, so I started looking for a house. I had a lot of contacts in my business, so when I asked people to look out for a house with at least 3 bedrooms on a large lot, I got a good dose of ribbing. Finally, someone got you, didn't they? Good for you, was a pretty common theme. I would just smile and show them her picture, and then the comments would boil down to lucky guy. One interior designer gave me some advice. Don't you know that 99% of the time, it's the woman who chooses the house? Maybe you should keep her in the loop. I took her advice and, armed with inside information about houses in disrepair or homeowners looking to sell due to the economy or divorce, went looking under the pretense that I wanted to spend as much time with her as possible and needed a woman's perspective. She wasn't impressed with the first 5 houses, but on the second weekend, we walked into a 4-bedroom house on 3 acres on the outskirts of town. She walked around the house, touching the appliances. She really liked the large kitchen. She liked the layout where the master bedroom was on one side of the house, away from the rest, allowing for privacy. We walked around all 3 acres, found a small stream, and she touched some large trees. "What are you thinking about, Sarah?" I asked. She looked at me with misty eyes. "Tree houses." The next week, I took time off and started the paperwork. I got a really favorable offer. They had just started the foreclosure process and were happy to avoid it. The owner had abandoned the house that week, leaving for parts unknown. On Friday, we were back at the house again. We took another look at it, and I asked her if she could be happy living here. "I'm sure I'd love it." "Why the question?" "Because we bought it on Monday. I need you to pick out some new furniture. Is that okay with you?" Before she could answer, I dropped to one knee. "I hope you like this house. I intend to live in it for a long time with you by my side. I'd like to use 1 or 2 of those bedrooms someday for children. All you have to do is say yes." I held out a ring, a traditional, simple ring with a stone on top. She surprised me by nearly fainting against the kitchen counter. Sarah recovered quickly. There were tears in her eyes, but I didn't get the response I was expecting. "I love you, Marcus, but I can't marry you right now. I'm begging you to give me time. I have some things I need to take care of before I accept your proposal. Please, I'm begging you for this. Give me 6 months and ask again. I promise the wait will be worth it if you agree." That wasn't the answer I was expecting, and I was terribly disappointed. She tried her best to reassure me, to the point of taking me shopping for furniture the next day. She had no real preference, just as long as it was sturdy. We bought a bedroom set with a California king bed, a sectional sofa, an armchair, and a rocking chair for the living room. I looked at her as she sat in the rocking chair. She grinned. This might come in handy in a year or two. That simple statement filled me with hope. I gave her a credit card and told her to buy whatever else she thought we needed. I took Sarah to meet the family. Mom and Hannah liked her right away. Grandma wasn't as enthusiastic. My little brother Tommy practically drooled over her, and my stepfather Robert just smirked. I took that as a good sign. I arrived the following Friday and went straight to the new house. She had added a nice dining room set and set up a guest room. Her car was parked outside, but I didn't see her. I found her waiting in the bedroom, and we spent the weekend making every piece of furniture in the house feel like home. The next weekend, I was sitting at Connor's bar, waiting for her, happier than I'd ever been in my life, when a guy walked in and sucker punched me. When she was gone, I had a few more drinks with friends and headed to my new home early in the morning to wait for the love of my life. 2 gunshots rang out as I walked to my car. They hit the car in 2 places, close enough to scare me to death. Instinct kicked in, and I dropped and rolled behind the SUV. I heard a guy approaching, crying and cursing. Peering between the cars, I rolled under the SUV, jumped out the other side, and crouching, ran to the next line of cars. "Come out, you bastard. I'll make sure you never mess with another husband again." His voice shook with rage, and I realized he was pretty drunk, judging by the slurred speech. I got a good look at him as he passed under a streetlight in the parking lot. This was the same guy who had hit me, and I realized it wasn't an accident. He was after me. My stepfather used to say, "Never leave a dangerous situation unresolved." So I waited and planned. He was almost level with my hiding place and looking the other way, so I carefully threw my shoe behind him. The slight noise made him turn, and as soon as his back was to me, I was at his side. I grabbed his hand, which had the gun in it, and yanked him back hard. The pressure made him release the gun, and after that I subdued him. Realizing that if I didn't stop, I was going to seriously hurt him, I let go and stood up. He was unconscious, so I picked him up, threw him in the back of my truck, and drove off, eventually ending up in front of an abandoned barn in the middle of nowhere. He was starting to come around when I lowered the tailgate and pulled him out by his feet, listening to his head hit the gravel as he fell. It knocked him out again. He came to his senses when I splashed some water on his face from the cooler in the back of the truck. He turned his head, eyes widening in horror as he realized he was restrained. I didn't intend to seriously hurt him, but I wanted to scare him. A .32, really? You can only annoy people with a weapon like that. Lucky for me, it helped me now. I'm going to talk, and you're going to listen and nod your head when I'm done. Then you can talk, and it better be good, because right now I have the urge to make you very sorry. Now would be a good time to start explaining. I have to hand it to him. Helpless though he was still defiant. What do you want me to say? That I'm okay with you messing around with my wife? That's never going to happen. Sooner or later, you'll stop being careful and I'll get justice. Better hurt me now. I looked down at him. He should have been terrified, but he wasn't backing down. I even admired him. I grabbed him, put him in the back seat, and held him by the front of his shirt. I'm not messing around with anyone's wife. What can I do to get you to leave me alone? The seriousness of this situation hit me very quickly. Back pocket, he sighed. Take out my wallet. Tell me that's not Sarah in the picture. If it isn't, I'll apologize, and you can do whatever you want to me. I can't describe how I felt when he said her name. Denial raged in my head as I pulled out his wallet, already knowing what I'd find. There it was, her, younger, slightly thinner, smiling for the camera as she posed in her wedding dress with her husband. Sighing, I took a seat next to him. He looked pleased. Is that her, you bastard? Never mind. I can see in your face that it's her. You really didn't know, did you? How does it feel? I hope it hurts as much for you as it does for me. We talked, and after 15 minutes, I let him go and pulled out the bottle of straight whiskey I'd bought earlier for the bar in my new house. We proceeded to get drunk. I woke up as the sun hit my face, and as I pulled myself up, I saw that he was holding the .32 caliber pistol and looking at me. Fear shot through me as he grinned. He put the gun in my toolbox. You're right. It's not a very good weapon, but I wouldn't want to be shot with one of those. We talked again in the back of the truck. I apologized again and was surprised when he brushed me off. I always knew this would happen sooner or later. The age difference and the fact that we don't have much in common had to play a part. And then there's the fact that I'm away every weekend. She had plenty of time to, well, that explained her free time. He worked as a trucker, specializing in hazardous materials, best hauled on weekends and at night to avoid traffic. It paid well, but he wasn't home Thursday through Sunday night. What are you going to do? He looked at me in surprise. Divorce her, of course. She's yours now if you still want her. I drunkenly admitted my marriage proposal to him. I shrugged. How could I ever trust her? This is the second time something like this has happened to me. No, it's over between us. It hurts, but I know from experience that it can be gotten over. I drove him back to his car, reminding him to get his gun when he got out. Keep it. I don't think I need it anymore. Let me remind you that it could have gotten me killed. When he got in the car, I asked him again what he was going to do. You're in luck. You can just walk away. I'm going to have to get a divorce. I'll try to keep it simple. No drama. You go your own way and leave me alone. No kids, so there shouldn't be a problem. If that happens, contact her and tell her you're going to charge her with adultery, and I'll act as a witness. It might make the case easier. He looked up in surprise and slowly held out his hand. I leaned out the truck window and shook it. Sorry, man, he said, started his truck, and drove off. I watched his taillights disappear. Me too, I said to the empty space, then drove in the opposite direction. I went to my grandmother's house, got in the van, and drove off. I wasn't hiding from anyone, but I knew I needed to wait a little while before I talked to her. Violence wasn't my nature, but I didn't trust myself not to say things I'd regret. I pulled over and sent her an email. Sarah, I'm not running away, but you really don't want to be around me right now. Don't look for me. I'm out of town and won't be back until next weekend. I'm going to spend that time thinking about our relationship. You remember it, don't you? The one that was based on lies. Call me next weekend, and if I can contain my anger, I'll try to listen to everything you have to say. But don't expect me to believe much. She immediately sent me a short reply. Thank you for at least agreeing to let me talk. There's a lot you don't know about me, and there's a lot I'd like to tell you. Unless you say otherwise, I'll be at your house next Saturday at 4 o'clock. And Marcus, believe it or not, I love you. I thought and pondered all week. My guys had some understanding of what was going on, so they forgave me for being difficult the first few days. As Saturday approached, my sense of dread grew. At least she wasn't dressing up and trying to seduce me. I didn't let her come into the kitchen, forcing her to sit across from me at the kitchen table she'd spent 2 weeks picking out to be perfect. She started to speak, but I held up my hand. Ground rules. Don't tell me how much you love me. Don't waste our time with a bunch of apologies. Just explain to me, why did you go to bars and date guys while you were married? Do you really think I can go on living my life wondering where you are while I'm working? You could get out of bed with someone else, shower and freshen up, meet me at home and bring me into bed. Would you be able to live like that if the situation were reversed? Tears came to her eyes, and she sobbed quietly for several minutes before she pulled herself together. The look on her face was defeated. I've already lost you, haven't I? I didn't answer her. Then she squared her shoulders, looked me in the eye, and began. I guess it doesn't matter anymore, but I'll tell you anyway. I grew up in poverty, and the expression trailer park trash fits my childhood perfectly. My mom left before I was old enough to remember her, so I was raised by my dad and two older sisters. I was a surprise baby, born when both of my parents were in their 30s. My sisters were teenagers when I came into the world. Dad was a complete alcoholic and never once in his entire life told me he loved me. She sighed, remembering. He eventually died of liver disease when I turned 18. My sisters already had families of their own, one married for the second time, the other for the third. So as you can see, I didn't have what you might call good role models in my life. Then I met David. I didn't love him, but I respected him, and I knew he would take care of me. I just knew that eventually, it would grow into love. We were doing well until he got that trucking job. I was bored and lonely. He talked me into going to the nursing program at the community college, just to have something to focus on. I don't think he expected me to graduate and continue my studies until I became a registered nurse. But for the first time in my life, I had a purpose and a valuable skill. Working in the ER brought in the most money, so I took the job. It was stressful, demanding, and left me no time to think about how my life was turning out. David was making good money, and I was putting most of my paycheck in the bank, intending to make a down payment on a house. Everything was fine until they changed my work schedule. Now when he was home, I was gone. I had friends who were urging me to stop staying home and go out with them for a drink or maybe a dance. I still wore my rings and no one bothered me, but it helped with the boredom. I know it doesn't matter now, but before I met you, I was planning on leaving David. And then I fell in love, really fell in love, and had to have you. The first time you kissed me, I realized it was over between me and David. I still respected him, but I was never going to love him the way I loved you. So I hired a lawyer and started the paperwork. I took my time, even though I wanted to get to know you better. There was no way I wanted to start a relationship with someone until I was sure of my feelings. I don't expect you to believe me, but I've never been with anyone but you since we started dating. You're only the second man I've ever been with, and that's the truth. She pulled out some papers. Look at the date. They should have been filed months ago. I just didn't know how to tell him, and the guilt was eating me alive. That's why I wanted to wait, honey. I may not be the best person since I was intimate with you while I was still married, but there's no way I would have taken your ring until I was a free woman. And I was going to tell you and very soon, but I was going to wait until I moved out. And frankly, I was going to lie a little about the timing. She talked herself out of waiting. You know, I believe most of what you're telling me, Sarah. But there are still some problems. For one thing, when you realized your feelings, you should have ended things with David right away. Instead, in my opinion, you kept David as a backup plan in case I wasn't what you needed. And you still were intimate with him even when you were being intimate with me. How do you explain that to yourself or me? But the most important thing to me is that even if we end up together, I still have to travel for work. What happens when you get lonely? Will you go out with your friends and maybe find yourself in the same situation again? Will I be like David, hiding in parking lots to catch your new lover? It all comes down to trust, Sarah. If I marry, it will only be to a woman I trust with my heart and soul, who will always have our best interests at heart. And that's not who you are right now. Frankly, I doubt you ever will be. But I'm offering you a deal. Get your divorce, let some time pass, and then call me if you're still interested. Maybe we can start over. We'll see. That was it, the final word. It took her 10 minutes to get herself under control again. She wanted a kiss, but I refused. I put my arms around her, and she pressed against me so tightly I thought I'd have bruises later. She pulled away, sniffling. I understand, Marcus. I really do. And even though you don't care about my promises right now, I'll give you one. No matter if we get back together or not, you will never find a woman who will love you more than I do. And one day, maybe many years from now, even if we aren't together, I'll find a way to prove it to you. She turned and walked away without another word. We only spoke twice after that. I was too angry, and she was too emotional to have a reasonable conversation. but she was determined to try. Eventually, she gave up direct communication and started emailing me once a week or so. She tried to keep things upbeat and conversational, but for at least 3 months, all the emails ended with her pleading for me to give her another chance. I answered her occasionally if she brought up some practical subject. She wrote to me about going to therapy and how it was helping her a lot. She even got David to go with her twice, and her only comment was that it was educational. She started writing less often, maybe twice a month, and finally, after 7 months, she stopped. I still have her last letter, and there's no way I can bring myself to delete it. Dear Marcus, I know it annoys you when I use emotional language, but this will be my last contact with you. So I will say what I feel even if you don't like it. I got my papers today. I'm officially a single woman again, the second best thing that ever happened to me. I will always consider meeting you as the first. Going to therapy helped me find out who I really am. I shouldn't have married David, but I was selfish and looking for a way out of my miserable life. I was too young, too immature, too stubborn to enter into an adult relationship. Oh, I did everything I wanted to do, but my heart was never truly engaged. Even without you, my marriage would have died sooner or later. I think inertia and fear kept me with him. The time I spent with Dr. Chun taught me to put away my emotional crutches and stand on my own 2 feet for the first time in my life. David was shocked when I told him I didn't want any of our joint assets and sent him a check reimbursing him for my education. I owed him a lot and more. We didn't exactly part as friends, but I don't think he hates me that much now. It's kind of funny if you think about it. Remember those stories I told you about living with 2 other nurses and the no boyfriends rule? I'm living exactly that life now, sharing a 2-bedroom apartment with 2 other nurses. I'm fine with that. Even though I'm independent now, I don't think I could go home to an empty apartment every night. In honor of my divorce, I'm going to give you a gift. I'm going to let you go. Dr. Chun helped me realize that if I were you, I'd have a hard time trusting me too. So I'm letting you go. I hope you have a good life and find a woman who will love you as much as I did and as much as I still do. Sarah. I stared at the screen for a long time, my finger hovering over the delete button. I didn't want to read it again. It was too painful. Instead, I saved it. This was how I wandered aimlessly through life. If it wasn't for work, I probably would have lost it altogether. It was almost 10 months before I went on a date. It was with a beautiful woman, the sister of a contractor with whom I had a lot of business. She was witty, articulate, and seemed to enjoy dancing close to me. I really enjoyed the evening, but at the end, we both realized there was no spark between us. We went out 2 more times before she found someone else, and we broke up amicably. During this time, I saw Sarah twice. Once, sitting at a stoplight, I saw her through the window of a small bistro. She was with a group of women, smiling and chatting. I sat there so long that the guy behind me had to honk his horn to get me to move. Sarah turned around at the noise and looked me straight in the eye when I pulled away. The next time was at the club. I was on my second date with Tina, and we had just sat down at a table when I noticed her sitting at the other end of the room with 4 of her friends. She must have felt eyes on her because she looked up and saw me. Time stopped while we looked at each other. It was actually about 30 seconds before she burst into tears and ran out of the club. Her friends ran after her, all but one, who stopped at my table. Did it feel good for you to rub another woman in her face? What's wrong with you? I was actually quite calm. Hello to you too, Gwen. I don't mean to dismiss your point of view, but I'm not rubbing anything in anyone's face. It's been almost a year since Sarah and I have been together. It's a pretty small town. We were bound to run into each other eventually. Tell her I'm sorry if I upset her, but it's time for her to move on. Good night, Gwen. I turned back to Tina, ignoring her. She stood there frowning for a few minutes and then walked away, muttering under her breath. Tina naturally wanted to know the whole story, so I told her. She looked at me thoughtfully. Inside, you can tell yourself it's over, but I saw the look on your face when you saw her. Even now, when we talk, you're watching the door like a hawk, waiting to see if she'll come back. And she still loves you, Why else would an ex-girlfriend cry after almost a year apart? You guys need to clear the air. I paid no attention to her comment. We went out one more time until she met someone she was interested in. David started going to my cousin Connor's bar. It gave us both the same opportunity. It was the one place Sarah never went to again. He really was a good guy. When the guys started making fun of him for trying to hurt me, I told them to back off. He had the truth on his side. If he hadn't been so drunk, he would have been much more accurate, and I would have been just a memory. One evening, after a few beers, he suddenly asked me a question. Do you miss her? I knew who he was talking about. It was no use trying to fool him. Every day, he sighed. Me too. But not every day, just every now and then when I see mutual friends or pass by a place we used to like to visit. I've been with her for years, you know. The other day, I saw one of her nurse friends, one of the few I liked, and we talked for a few minutes. She said they call Sarah the nun because she doesn't want to date. She blamed it on you, not me. Said that you have spoiled her so badly that she can't bear the thought of being intimate with another man. She also told me that she was going to therapy, which I'm sure you already know. One of her assignments was to write a letter of apology to everyone she had hurt. In her letter to me, she called it cleansing her demons. Do you have anything like that? I admitted that I did but didn't elaborate. Well, I kind of remember the good times too, and then at the end, she owned up to everything, pleaded guilty to it all. Hell, she even gave me back the money I spent on her nursing degree. I hope she finds someone else. Someone who treats her well. David had gotten lucky. The day his divorce became final, one of the dispatchers at his job asked him out. She was a few years older. A military widow with a 14-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl. They were made for each other, shared the same views, the same beliefs, and he was great with her kids. He was even an assistant coach on the girls' softball team. He went so far as to talk Connor and me into sponsoring them. We took half the bar, went to a few games, and cheered her on by name, much to her embarrassment. But the hug she gave him was genuine, and he looked so proud you could burst. We were already planning his bachelor party. I was happy for him and sad, watching the little girls play and wondering if I would ever be able to be in the stands cheering on my kid. My chances were getting slimmer and slimmer. I was 32. My biological clock was ticking. So I threw myself into the business and grew it. However, there comes a point when you can saturate your market. I was taking on more work than we could handle, even after adding new craftsmen. My grandmother and sister used to get on me for it. Let someone else have the contract, Marcus. Stick with what we have. If you don't, our quality will drop, and that's the kiss of death in this field. Think about Grandpa. Do you want his life's work to disappear? It made sense. I stopped taking on new work and even handed off a few small projects to competitors I was confident would do well. I got my business back on an even keel, but a setback hit me in my personal life. I ran into Hannah while she was still in college. When she asked me to come in and look at a job, she emailed me using her married name, so I was surprised when I saw her. She was a little heavier but still attractive and, by her own admission, very successful in her career, in addition to having a successful marriage. Her husband was a successful businessman, according to Hannah. She held his hand while talking about it, and it didn't embarrass him in the least. He was probably about 10 years older, and they had just had their first child. Everything they wanted was pretty elaborate, including a small decorative gate and railing system designed for their garden. She wanted it to be built like the Scottish ironwork she had seen when they were on their honeymoon. We talked, and I agreed to take the contract if I could do it on my own schedule. I took 2 journeymen and 1 master smith and set about creating the structures. I did all the preliminary work, designed the pieces, and selected the steel. She wanted traditional wrought iron styling, which was challenging as most modern wrought iron is actually mild steel. I was lucky. I found some authentic wrought iron stock from a demolished building and carefully planned how to incorporate it into the new design. There was also an old iron fence on the property, the last remnant of the original estate's boundary. I walked over and looked at it and saw an example of the finest ironwork. Every piece of metal, right down to the decorative finials, was perfectly crafted and fitted. It impressed me so much that I asked Hannah to come and inspect it, explaining my idea. She immediately agreed. I built her a decorative garden gate with matching railings, incorporating some of the antique ironwork into the design. The contrast between the old hand-forged pieces and the new work created a beautiful effect. It was the perfect accent for their landscaped garden. Years later, she sent me a picture of her 3 children playing near the gate, with flowers blooming all around it. An unexpected bonus came when I restored some of the old fence and discovered something hidden in one of the hollow posts. This was a fairly common practice in the old days. People would hide valuables in structural ironwork. There I found a small metal box containing some old coins, a pocket watch, and what appeared to be a love letter from the 1890s. The letter was from a woman to her lover, who apparently worked as the estate's blacksmith. Technically, everything belonged to me since I had done the restoration work, but I gave it to the current homeowners who were fascinated by the history. They donated the items to the local historical society, which wrote about the find in the papers. There was a brief interest in people examining old ironwork around the area, but nothing else significant was found. After I finished the project, Hannah invited me to a party to show off my work. I went mostly for business reasons. After all, most of their friends were pretty well off. I made a few contacts and ended up sitting with Hannah while the party wound down. "I still talk to her from time to time," she said abruptly. I realized she was talking about Victoria. I hadn't thought of her in years. Without asking me, she pulled out some pictures on her phone. Victoria had cut her hair much shorter than she had in college and had gained probably 30 pounds. It didn't look too bad on her tall figure, but the muscle tone I remembered was long gone. In one of the pictures, she was standing next to a man who was a couple of inches shorter. They had their arms around each other and were smiling at the camera. "Her second husband," Hannah said. "The first one was a complete failure because they both had affairs. She met Daniel a year later when he brought a client to her therapy practice. They ended up having coffee, then had a date that led to the altar. She too was in therapy and told him the truth about you, her first husband, and how she didn't think she was a good wife. After a long engagement, he convinced her that he was willing to take the risk, to trust her because he had no choice. He just couldn't imagine life without her. They eloped the next day. It's been just under 2 years, and they are inseparable. I believe she'll make it work this time. I think I surprised her when I told her I was happy for Victoria. I thought about it later and decided that I really was happy for her. Apparently, it had taken her years to get herself together, and I hoped it was worth the wait. As for me, I stopped going on dates, trying to figure myself out. I couldn't afford to get involved with anyone when Sarah's memory still loomed before my eyes. On a whim, I sent her an email. "Sarah, I just want you to know that I wasn't trying to make some kind of statement when I saw you at the club. I had no intention of hurting you or making you feel uncomfortable. It was pure accident. I had no idea you were there. If it's any consolation, it ruined my evening too. Marcus." She replied to me the next day, "I'm sorry I ruined your evening. I had no right to. I know it's over between us. I know we'll never be together. I just can't stop loving you. I've given up trying. Time is supposed to heal you, but all it does is make me miss you even more. I got an offer from another hospital, far enough away that I won't run into you. I think I'll take the job and start fresh. Maybe then I'll be cured. I really do wish you happiness. Sarah. P.S. If you ever want to talk, just text me." I wondered, we didn't see each other that often, but if moving would help her, I'd be all for it. Maybe then one of us would be happy. And here we were, swaying to the music, the feeling disturbingly familiar and yet completely different. David had convinced the orchestra, and they played 3 slow songs in a row. I would have stopped after the first one, but she wouldn't let me go. I thought about forcing her, but I didn't. When they finally ended, she clutched at my arm. "Will you sit with me for a while, please?" I'll get on my knees and beg if I have to. The thought of her embarrassing us both made me agree. She led me to a small table at the back of the room, far enough away from the group that we could talk. She tried to make small talk, and I let her ramble for a minute before I stopped her. What are you really trying to say, Sarah? Stop beating around the bush and get it out in the open. She hung her head for a second and then looked up at me. I'd never seen a more determined expression on her face. I can answer that in one word, you. I want you back. I've tried, Marcus, really tried, but I can't let you go. I can't forget about you. I can't stop loving you. I can see it in your eyes, you still care about me. I know you don't date much. My friends tell me that every time they see me. Why? You have it all: good looks, good values, great job, bright future. I bet you've been approached a lot since we broke up. You could have had your pick, but you turned them all down. I think I know why. I can tell you why I didn't find anyone else. First of all, I didn't want anyone else. I thought about dating a couple of times, but I looked at them, wondered how they compared to you, and told them no. I never stopped loving you. I never even pretended to try. Why don't we start over? I think you'll find me very different than I was before. I'm begging you, just give me one chance. Take me out on one date, and if it feels wrong, I'll never bother you again. Think about it and call me. My number's still the same. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the dance. It means a lot to me. She jumped up and kissed me on the cheek, then left. I watched as she talked to David and Elena, hugged both of them, and then disappeared out the door. David came over and sat down. Well, what do you think? Are you going to give her another chance? You have to. You both deserve it. I looked at him like he just turned green and spoke a foreign language. He sighed. That's up to you. Another thing I wanted to tell you earlier. Since the day she met you, she hasn't been with me. She apologized for that in her letter. She said she had contracted something at work and that it would be 6 months before she could be intimate again, and she had to get tested to make sure she was free of the infection. I should have been angry about that, but by the time she told me, I had gotten over it. I guess deep down I never loved her either. Not the way I should have loved her. Now go ahead and congratulate us one more time before we leave for Niagara Falls. Can you believe it? I wanted somewhere warm and she wanted... Well, I have a feeling that whatever Elena wants, she'll get. She wanted me and she got me. She's the one who insisted I bring you both here. She can be very persuasive. I like that. I thought about it for about 2 weeks. A neighboring town had Friday night concerts in the summer on the lawn of the old courthouse. Blues, folk, rock, country. To lighten things up, that weekend a blues duo, a man and a woman with the catchy name Freeman and Sweet Thing, were performing. I had heard them before and they were very good. I called Sarah and asked if she wanted to attend. There was a long silence. I thought she had hung up. Then I heard a quiet yes that sounded like a sob, and she hung up. It seemed like a safe choice. Surrounded by a lot of people, there was no chance of getting too deep into anything. I didn't even bother picking her up. We met at the park. I got there early and picked a good spot, setting up chairs in advance. She showed up right on time at the place where we agreed to meet. She didn't notice me at first, and I stared at her for a while. She was wearing a pale yellow sundress, her long curls glistening in the setting sun. The sight took my breath away. Her smile blossomed when she saw me. She rushed toward me, about to hug me, but stopped. Instead, she shyly touched my hand. We walked around the square until the show started, window shopping and people watching. I bought 2 glasses of red wine, which I knew she liked to sip while we listened. The duo was very good, professional. The guy was older, in his early 40s, and she looked to be a little over 30. Their voices blended very well, and he was a slide guitar virtuoso. Their banter between songs was humorous, and their song selection had something for everyone. We laughed at the humorous ones, but when the guy sang a song about a woman cheating on him, you could hear the anguish in his voice. Sarah tensed up and looked at me, blushing. The next song, a duet about rekindling romance, brought a smile to her face. By 9, the concert was over. She stood while I cleaned up the chairs and looked at me hopefully. "Thank you for tonight, Marcus. It's not over yet, unless you want it to end. I'm starving. Do you want to get pizza at Yanni's?" Tears glistened as she took my hand. It was one of our favorite restaurants when we were together. Yanni's was located on the square and offered Greek and Italian cuisine. On concert nights, they stayed open for another hour and did pretty good business. I had done some decorative ironwork for his outdoor dining area, custom chairbacks and table bases. Yanni personally served us without even letting us order. "Ah, young lovers. I thought you had forgotten your old friend. It's good to see you again. One pizza from Yanni. Right away." A large pizza, half of which was filled with anchovies, mine, and the other half with mushrooms, hers. We ate and put the leftovers in a box. I walked her to her car. "Thanks for the evening, Sarah. I had fun." She had been holding my hand since we left the restaurant. Before I could say anything else, she hugged me tightly, kissed me on the cheek, and jumped into the car. I stood and watched her taillights disappear and wondered what it all meant. We went out 2 more times. A romantic movie that gave her an excuse to take my hand and snuggle up to me while she cried. Then a day at the local fair. She made me walk with her through all the exhibits, admiring the canned goods and pastries, laughing at the exotic vegetables. She froze in front of a huge display of quilts, a dozen or more, from traditional to modern, all works of fabric art. Tears came to her eyes, and a memory came over me. One evening, as we were getting comfortable in my new home, she showed me a picture of a quilt in one of her magazines. I've always wanted to learn how to do that. Why? Because, silly me, I want to be able to sew all our children their own personal quilts. Something durable that they can pass on to their children, and those children to our great-grandchildren. She realized what she'd said and looked at me nervously. I grinned. "How many quilts are we talking about?" She smiled, glad I wasn't angry. "Oh, at least 3, maybe more if you're lucky." She laughed at the stunned expression on my face and settled back down, flipping through the pages. Back to the present, I said nothing but took her hand and squeezed it gently, grabbing the card in front of the display and putting it in my pocket. "Busy Needle Quilting Club. Join us and learn the art of quilt making. We have classes, workshops, and soon you'll be sewing with confidence." Plus, she had a birthday coming up. I thought this would be the perfect gift. The candy would be eaten, the flowers would fade, but the new skill would stay with her forever. We went on rides, at least the ones she could get me on. I watched her ride the scarier ones myself. Come on, everyone's scared of something, right? She thought it was funny that a combat veteran was afraid of little old roller coasters. She had her own fears. Chief among them was thunderstorms. When she was 6 years old, she was almost struck by lightning. It had hit the ground 10 feet away, knocking her and her friends unconscious. Now she stayed inside, away from the windows, and shook until it was over. Holding her in my arms helped a little. We kissed for the first time sitting and watching the fireworks that they set off every night while the fair was going on. Huddled together in the bleachers of the arena. It just happened, none of us planned it. She said something, and when I turned to respond, our lips seemed to connect on their own. It seemed like it lasted for hours, but it was probably only 10 or 15 seconds. We pulled apart and looked at each other, amazement written all over both of our faces. We didn't say a word to each other for the rest of the evening, and when I drove her home, she just walked out and into the house. We hadn't seen each other for almost 3 weeks. We weren't avoiding each other. I was still trying to catch up on work. The weather had caused us to fall behind, and it took us that long to catch up. We talked on the phone a few times, but she seemed distant. I began to wonder if the kiss was a mistake. I called home and informed my family that I had finished the project and intended to be home by Thursday. They seemed relieved but worried that I was working too much. It was wearing me out. I sighed and tossed the bag of dirty laundry into the foyer. I'll deal with those later, I thought. I wanted to shower first. The only change I'd made since I bought the house was remodeling the bathroom. It was bigger, and the shower had enough room for 4 people. It had 6 nozzles that could be turned on simultaneously, individually, or in any combination of your choice. Full flow, massage, pulses, or gentle mist. When I had it made, my first thought was how much Sarah would like it. It wasn't finished until 2 weeks after we broke up. When you live alone, especially if you've lived alone for a while, you don't usually think about how you're dressed when you move around your house. I thought I heard a giggle. It was Sarah, sitting on the bed. What? How? Why? A smile spread across her face. What is self-explanatory? How? Your mom told me you'd be home tonight. Why? Because I have something to tell you. Now get dressed and meet me in the living room. She started to leave the bedroom, saw me watching her, looked over her shoulder, and grinned. Here's another thought. You stay as you are, and I'll join you. The thought made me jump to my feet. No, I said quickly. I'll be out in a second. I grabbed my shorts and t-shirt, wanting to relax. Took a few minutes. When I came out, she was sitting in the rocking chair, looking out into the backyard. Turning to me, she gave me her beautiful smile. I have something to tell you, and I want you not to interrupt. I want to tell you everything before my nerves give out. Please. I nodded, sinking down onto the sectional couch she'd insisted on buying. I'd thought about changing the furniture when we separated, but it fit the room well and was comfortable. I preferred to sit in the chair most of the time. Every time I sat down on the couch, images of us together would run through my head, and eventually I would move. I know that the last few times we've talked, I've been out of sorts. It reminded me of what I've lost, of what I want back. I want you back. I want you to chase me around the house like you used to until I get tired of playing and let you catch me. I want to take the air mattress out to the backyard, lie on it like we used to, look up at the stars, snuggle against each other, and then make love. I want you to love me again. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I started to speak, but she held up her hand. Wait, I'm almost done. And then I realized something. You already love me. I know it, you know it, everyone we know knows it. Love isn't our problem. It's trust. I lied to you in the worst possible way. It took some time, but now I realize how much I hurt you. So I had to find a way to regain your trust. Here's what I came up with. Let me move back in. You've got security cameras, add more. Wire up the whole house. Then, while you're gone, you can access the footage at any time to see what I'm up to. Put a GPS tracker on my car, and you'll know immediately where I am and where I've been. I did a little research on the internet. We can buy a personal tracker like those ankle devices that criminals wear. This model is a bracelet. Again, you'll immediately see where I am at all times. She lowered her eyes, a deep blush appearing on her face. If that's not enough, I'll wear a chastity device. They make them, I've checked. You can secure me when you leave and release me when you come home. I'll do all this just to prove you can trust me. Obviously, Sarah had thought this through carefully. Unfortunately, she missed one thing. I explained it to her as gently as possible. First, let me thank you for thinking about how we can be together again, for being willing to do all the things you described. But it's never going to work. Tears came to my eyes, and I held up my hand as she tried to speak. It's my turn, hear me out. All the things you're willing to do are things you don't need to do if we trust each other. If we did them, you wouldn't be a partner in a relationship but a prisoner. While some of them might sound interesting in terms of play, you can't live with that all the time. Oh, I'm sure you'd try, but sooner or later you'd start to resent it. I know I would. All this stuff doesn't foster trust, just the opposite. If I have to put so much effort into monitoring you, it only reinforces the idea that you can't be trusted. I can't live like this, and deep down, you know all of this. The tears flowed freely. She stood up and crept toward the door. I caught her and pulled her to me on the couch. She buried her head in my shoulder and cried for a few minutes. So it's over then? Quite the opposite, baby. I think it's just beginning. What you did today, what you were willing to do, takes a lot of courage. That's what makes me think we can make it work. So let's take our time, build on what we've done. Okay? She looked up and smiled. She reminded me of the sun peeking out after a big thunderstorm. Really? Yes, honey, really. The next morning, I was going to take her to breakfast and then to her apartment to get clothes. She was working double shifts today to help a friend. Then she was staying at the house for the weekend. I met her roommates and understood why she said she was thinking about moving. Amanda was a tall blonde, decent looking, but she couldn't compare to Sarah. She'd been married twice, divorced twice, and both times the reason was infidelity. Her last affair was with a woman, and she had developed feelings for Sarah. Beth was red-haired and attractive, if she ever smiled. She hadn't cheated on her husband, but she had anger issues. He'd postponed the wedding until she got help, and she'd lied to him, saying she'd gone through an anger management program. After the marriage, she turned into what her ex described as someone even the devil would kick out of hell because he couldn't stand her. He'd filed for irreconcilable differences because it was the easiest way, and in this case it was the right way. She was surprised when he begged her to seek help right up to the day he filed the papers. She didn't take it well and ended up getting a restraining order requiring her to stay 500 feet away from him at all times. She violated it twice before the judge got fed up and put her in jail for the weekend. She begged for counseling, got it, but after 3 sessions of listening to her outbursts, the counselor recommended she continue the divorce process. Her idea of revenge was to sleep with anything that moved and tell him about it. By then, he didn't care anymore because he had met someone else. The funny thing is, she's in therapy now because the hospital told her it was either that or unemployment. No one wants a nurse with an attitude problem like hers. They didn't hesitate for a second as soon as Sarah closed the door. They pounced on me like rabid animals. So you're the guy who messed with her head like that. I know you're kind, you can't or won't forgive. Your precious pride won't let you. You'll end up making her jump through hoops until you're sick of her, and you'll dump her again. I'd never seen anyone spew venom like that. She must have had a day where she could finally spew it out at someone. I made a mental note to never turn my back on Beth. Amanda wasn't any better. If you hurt her, I swear it'll be the last thing you do. She deserves better. She deserves to find someone who can love her right. Not someone who will hold it over her for the rest of her life because she made a mistake. She probably would have said more, but I'd already heard enough. My good mood had long since faded. Listen up. First of all, this has nothing to do with you two and Sarah and me. And if you think you're going to be the one to end up with her, think again, Amanda. Sarah's trying to be tolerant, but the fact that you'll manage to be with her is about the same as the fact that I'll ever like you. It's not going to happen in this lifetime. I turned to Beth. And you, Amanda, I can understand a little. She's infatuated or maybe just deeply attracted. You have no excuse. You just don't want anyone to be happy, period. Your husband should be a saint for putting up with you for as long as he did. I was on a roll. In retrospect, I can say that maybe I should have been a little quieter, but it felt good to let my emotions out, especially on people I didn't care deeply about. So forget you both. I'm not the least bit interested in your problems right now. We need to deal with our own past. Don't expect an invitation if we decide to get married. You wouldn't come anyway. But seeing your faces when I say my vows would be just fine. Sarah caught the last moment of our exchange and stared like a deer caught in headlights. Amanda noticed her and immediately started in on her. I hope you were listening, Sarah. This guy isn't going to take you back. He's just messing with you, waiting for you to get comfortable before he drops the hammer. I've met guys like that before, honey. Notice he says, if a lot. My second husband was just like him, just too damn proud to forgive a mistake. Newsflash. Pride won't love you back, give you kisses, hug you when you feel bad. At this point, I was beyond furious. Really, Amanda? Really? Pride won't let you do those things, but pride will allow you to look at yourself in the morning, confident that you are true to your beliefs. Pride will also allow you to walk down the street and look other people in the eye for the same reason. I have often thought that the old saying about pride is wrong. Pride doesn't come before a fall. It comes after it. When you find yourself in the mud and everything you wanted, everything you believed in, and everything you loved has been taken from you, pride will lift you up. Pride will force you to live up to your principles. It may not allow you to sleep at night, but it will make you realize that your insomnia is tolerable. Now, however interesting this conversation may be, Sarah is ready, and we are leaving. I took her hand and pulled her out the door, never so excited to leave a place in my life. On the way to the car, Sarah was silent. When we got to my house, she put the suitcase in the trunk instead of carrying it inside. I was confused. Sarah, honey, let's put your suitcase in the house. You don't have to drive around town with it. There's a chance of it being stolen. It'll be here when you get back tonight. She didn't look me in the eye. I think I'll pass. I'll be really tired, so I'll probably just go home and crash. I need to think without distractions. That hit me hard. What's wrong, Sarah? 3 hours ago, you were willing to volunteer for surveillance and you regretted it. You even tried to ask someone to cover for you, and now, because of the rantings of some seriously disturbed women, and even after yesterday and this morning, you don't want to spend time with me? Fine. Go find someone else, but be careful. I've already learned to live without you once. If you start being passive-aggressive with me now, it'll be the last straw. And before you go, I'd like my key back. I think she realized then that she had made a serious mistake and tried to correct it, but I was nowhere near as reasonable. After we're finally reconnected, does she want to come back? She was done. I'm done with her. I'm perfectly fine without her. Of course, I wasn't. I missed her more than I had before we broke up the first time, and I was angry at myself for letting myself believe it could work. I was comforted by my work. You have to be careful when you're working with heavy steel and hot forges. That's what my scarred hands had taught me. So I worked on the backlog, trying to catch up until the cold weather interfered. I didn't go home for 3 weeks and only took 1 day off to do laundry and check on the house. I was a little surprised to see her car in my driveway. I was even more surprised when Sarah flew out of the house and tackled me, knocking us both to the ground. She clutched at me desperately, mumbling and muttering almost incoherently. She was pretty strong, but she didn't swing hammers for a living. I got tired of being gentle, so I took her hands and forced them back until they were behind her back. Shut up. I had never raised my voice at her before, and it shocked her into silence. I took advantage of this and stood up, leaving her on the ground. I was about to close the door when her whimpering turned into a scream. Even though I wanted nothing to do with her, I couldn't stand the sound of her pain. I went back and tried to pick her up, but she refused to move. Then I took her in my arms and headed for the door. Her arms wrapped around my neck as the tears flowed, and she pressed into my neck. I lowered her to the couch, not very gently, and went to get some water. Drink, I said, sitting her upright. She drank the water and stared at me with her huge eyes. How did you get in here? I asked. When she remained silent, she started to speak but incoherently. I raised my hand, and she stopped instantly. I'll try again. Answer me in simple words. Take your time and be truthful. One lie and I'll never speak to you again. Begin. She lowered her head as she spoke, so quietly that I almost asked her to speak louder. I broke the window. I replaced it right away. I knew where you kept the spare keys and I used them that night. I came home after I finished my shift, had a terrible fight with Amanda and Beth, and they kicked me out. I could have gone to a motel, but I ran here like a wounded animal because I was a wounded animal, destroyed by my own actions. I just wanted to be near you, to beg you to help me get your love back. You weren't here, and you didn't respond to the texts, messages, and emails I left for you. I felt safe here, so I stayed waiting for you to come home. If you want me to leave, I'll leave. She looked utterly destroyed. Kicking her out would be like beating a puppy. Well, not right now. I still have some things to think about, and for that, I'm going to need your help. Order a pizza, I'm starving. I'll be back after my shower. Her eyes lit up with hope, but my expression dimmed it when I stepped out of the shower dressed in sweatpants. I noticed she was fresher, minimal makeup, hair neatly tied back in a ponytail. She looked younger that way. I was saved from talking by the arrival of the pizza, which Sarah grabbed and brought into the kitchen. By the time I paid, she'd already set the table, and there was a glass of wine next to my plate that I handed the wine back. Water will suffice for now. I want to have a clear head for later. She nodded, poured us both glasses of water, and put the wine away. I paid attention to the way she ate, taking small bites and glancing at me from time to time. She seemed a little thinner than I remembered. Are you on a diet? She shook her head. Just haven't felt like eating lately. I nodded and ate another slice of pizza, thinking as I ate. I really didn't know what to do. We were a pretty messed up pair of human beings. We finished, she cleaned up, and we sat down in the living room to talk. I noticed that she was disappointed that I didn't sit next to her but chose to position myself facing her in the chair. Tell me the truth, Sarah. I know you want us to be together again. I want us to be together again. But how? How can I trust you? What can you say or do to get us back to where we were before everything fell apart? Suggestions? She actually had a plan. Couples counseling. Pam at work told me about it. She went through a bad time with her boyfriend just before they were going to get married, and they went to see if they could save their relationship. She said it worked wonders, making them both realize that they weren't ready for married life. They postponed their wedding for a year, but she said the wait was worth it, because when she walked down the aisle and met him at the altar, they were both sure in their hearts that this was the path they were meant to walk. I even get a discount because of my work insurance. Would you consider it? I think it's the only way to overcome what I've done. I want to try, and I'm begging you for this. There's a chance we'll realize we'll never be together, but I'm willing to accept it. This half-life is killing me. Please promise me you'll think about it. I could tell it took a lot for her to make that little speech, and I promised I'd think about it. She nodded, looking half hopeful. She stood up, and I heard her rummaging around in the bedroom. A few minutes later, she came out dragging her suitcase behind her. Will you help me load it into the car? Well, what the hell? She sits in my house, begs me to go to couples counseling with her, and then runs off again. Where are you going, Sarah? She looked surprised. To a motel, I guess. I know you don't want me here right now. I think I'll look for an apartment next week. I picked up the suitcase, surprised at its weight. Instead of heading for the door, I carried it into the bedroom, tossed it on the bed, and started unpacking. She followed me and watched in silence before asking in a timid voice what I was doing. I'm putting your clothes where they belong. Now, do you want to help me? I can do it without you if I need to, but I can't put things where you want them. I picked up one of her items and twirled it in my hands. Suddenly shy, she snatched it from me. Here's the deal, she said through tears. I'll wash them and put them on, but you have to take them off as often as possible. I had never seen a woman cry and smile at the same time. Her face showed all sorts of expressions. Agreed, I said softly, but there will be some rules. I think I'll have some wine. Would you like your glass? She nodded, her hair falling over her eyes. 10 minutes later, she pressed herself against me and took the wine. Sarah was silent for a few minutes, savoring the wine and the moment. Finally, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, she whispered, Rules. Yes, Sarah, the rules. I'd like to say we'll make it work, but until we solve our problems, I'm not sure. You'll continue to live with me. You can sleep in my bed if you want. We won't get better if we're apart. Make an appointment for counseling as soon as possible. Email me the dates, but please try to schedule it for Friday evening so I can work around it. I'm willing to try, Sarah. You know I love you more than anything in the world, but I need to know in my heart that I can trust you completely in the future. And if, for some reason, one of us decides it's not going to work out, we'll tell the other one right away. Agreed. I expected her to argue with me, but she said nothing, sipping her wine. I was about to speak again when Sarah spoke up. Yes, from the bottom of my heart. And I'm going to sleep in our bed. Where else would I sleep? In return, I want a few things from you. I want you to adjust your work enough to spend more than one day with me. I want your absolute promise that unless there is a natural disaster or emergency, you will attend all sessions. Promise me. I was about to reply when she raised her hand. And one more thing. I want you to try to think of a way I can prove how much I love you and that I will always be faithful to you. Whatever it is, I will do it. But I have my doubts. Maybe sometime in the future, I'll ask you to do the same. Deal? Deal? I said. We didn't make love that night. It just felt wrong somehow. I lay awake wondering if we were finally on the right path to happiness. I justified working shorter hours on Fridays. I worked half days or no work at all so I could be home during our sessions. The counselor was a man, which surprised me. I would have bet good money that she would choose a woman. As it turned out, she chose him because he had the highest success rate in helping couples work through their problems of anyone else in the practice. I liked this guy. He was calm, relaxed, and told me he liked to keep the drama to a minimum. We had one session each before going together. At each one, he asked what outcome we were hoping for. Our answers were very similar. He was direct but didn't waste time, and often Sarah would cry before the session was over. I didn't cry, but he pushed my buttons skillfully enough to make me want to argue with him a couple of times. He got Sarah to admit what I suspected. She stayed with David, especially early in our relationship, as a security blanket in case I turned out not to be who she thought I was. When she realized she wanted me, she started the divorce process but didn't file for it. She reasoned that until I proposed to her, she wasn't sure how I felt. I said that was nonsense, and the counselor agreed with me. Is that really true, Sarah? In the 6 months that you were dating, especially after you started staying with him on weekends, you didn't feel sure that he loved you? Even if you ended things with your ex while you were dating Marcus, you still shared a bed, still cuddled, exchanged intimacy, and when he left, you did the same thing with Marcus. Yes, you filed for divorce, but only after you were caught. She almost shouted out her answer, surprising us both. You think I don't know what I did? I betrayed them both, and I ruined every chance at happiness I ever had. She calmed down a little and sighed. I don't think that's necessarily true, Sarah, or you two wouldn't be here right now. However, I do think we've gone as far as we can in these sessions. We both looked at him in surprise. But we're not healed yet, exclaimed Sarah. No, you're not healed, but you've gone as far as you could with my help. You're both obviously still deeply in love with each other. That was easy to determine. You want to stay together to find the happiness you both desperately desire. That goes without saying. It all comes down to trust. Can Marcus trust you? I hope so. Does he trust you now? No. It's the same with you. You're not sure he can survive what you did, and that at some point he might want revenge. You both need to make a decision soon about whether the work and pain you're both going through is worth it to resolve your issues. I can't do that. I don't have a magic solution to make everything better. I can only wish you luck and say this. I think if you can find the grace to forgive each other, you will never regret it. And if you can't, well, you need to accept the loss and walk away. I wish you all the luck in the world. We ended up outside his office and looked at each other in surprise. Sarah said, "What do we do next?" I didn't have an answer. We tried to move forward for 3 months. We would have days of happiness, and then something would trigger in one of us and life would get stressful for a day or so. We would quickly become frustrated, and cracks would appear. I thought about her often while I was at work. She would call me every night, which I looked forward to, and then send pictures of her at our house, proving she was there. It got tiresome quickly enough. I said to her one night, "Stop sending me pictures, and stop locking yourself in the house every night. It's driving us both crazy. Get out of the house once in a while. Have dinner with friends, even go out for drinks with people you work with. I will assume that you are an adult who has made a mistake and learned from it. If I don't, it won't matter anymore, will it? I think she got the point. A few days later, she went to the movies with her best friend. She liked horror movies, which I had absolutely no interest in, and she called me the next night to tell me how much fun she'd had before moving on to a more serious note. Thank you, sweetheart, for loving me and for trusting me. She paused. It felt good. I even teased her, telling her I was glad I didn't have to drag myself to terrible movies anymore. Her former spirit showed through. They don't suck. They're an art form that a caveman like you just doesn't understand. Despite your limited intellect, I still love you. Good night, sweetheart. But no matter how hard I tried, she knew something was holding me back. In the last week or so, she had become quiet, and I realized that this could be the beginning of the end. Oddly enough, things worked out just fine at the flea market. Sarah loved the smell of incense. She had little burners all over the house. Most of the smells were pleasant enough, so I tolerated it. There was a booth run by a woman who looked like she belonged in a mystical shop that had literally hundreds of scents. Sarah was running low and asked me to take her there. We both loved it and often spent hours at a time in the place. We actually bought very little, but every once in a while we stumbled upon a treasure, at least in our opinion. I watched her flutter back and forth, willowy grace personified, smiling occasionally, raising a stick to her nose. She sensed I was watching her, lifted her head, and smiled, the familiar, joyful smile I loved so much. Then her eyes clouded over, and she lowered her gaze in sadness. At that very moment, I realized that if I didn't change, I would soon lose her. It was late summer, and as we were leaving, one of those quick seasonal thunderstorms broke with wind and lightning, passing as quickly as it came. There was the first rumble of thunder, and Sarah jumped slightly. I instinctively put my arm around her, calming her down. Luckily, we were inside in one of the many halls that seemed to stretch on endlessly. We got there late, and they were already starting to close. Wait here, honey. I'll get the truck and drive up to the door. I jogged into the parking lot and was soaked almost instantly. I thought intensely as I waited for my turn to pull up to the door, almost praying to overcome my inability to trust and love her the way I was supposed to. As I pulled up to the entrance, a song I'd always loved came on the radio station I'd been half listening to. Slow dancing. Swaying to the music, slow dancing. Just me and my girl. Came from the speakers. I looked toward the entrance, trying to get a glimpse of Sarah, and glanced at the bumper sticker of a small van parked nearby, guessing it belonged to one of the incense vendors. There were many stickers on the van, but the one that caught my eye sent shivers running down my spine. Life isn't about hiding from the storm. It's about learning to love dancing in the rain. I realized this was the way to prove to me that Sarah loved me. I opened the door and turned up the volume. I stood in the pouring rain while lightning flashed and held out my hand. I get it, sweetheart. If you really love me, really, really love me, you'll come outside and dance with me in the rain. This is our last chance. Please, please, let's dance. I was almost shouting to be heard over the storm. Everyone was looking at her, wondering what she would do. I know she couldn't see them clearly in the rain, but tears were running down my cheeks. She crept to the door, flinching with every flash, and I stood holding my hand 3 feet away from her. Sarah looked into my eyes, trying to see if I was sincere. She must have gotten the answer she wanted. The song ended after about 90 seconds, and I picked her up in my arms and put her in the truck. Yes, the song was short, but it said everything that needed to be said. She loved me enough to face her greatest fear to prove it. What better demonstration could there be? We sat in the parking lot, wiping each other with napkins from the glove compartment, laughing and crying together. Then we drove home and made love, and it was total, absolute love. 9 months later, I felt weak looking at it. The newest, steepest, scariest roller coaster on the planet. There were loops and turns and a sheer drop from a height of 325 feet. but I had to do it. So I held her hand tightly as we stood ready to be buckled in. A week after the slow dance in the rain, she told me that one day she would ask me to do something in return to show my absolute love for her. I instantly agreed, and this was the result. The coaster was designed like a bullet, and the seats were single file. She let me go first, holding my hand while I was strapped in and secured. Then I felt horror as she let go of me and stepped back. "You're not coming with me?" For some reason, she was crying and smiling at the same time. "I can't." "Why the hell not?" I almost screamed as the ride lurched forward and picked up speed. As I rode past the safety rules posted at the entrance, I read them quickly. Rule number 1. You must be 48 inches tall to ride this ride. Rule number 2. Anyone with heart or other medical conditions should not ride this ride. Rule number 3. Pregnant women are not allowed on this ride. Wait a minute. What? The coaster climbed higher, and I looked back to see Sarah standing there, both hands pressed to her stomach, tears streaming down her face, but smiling the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. Our baby, our future, everything we'd fought for, everything we'd lost, everything we'd found again. All of it was right there in that moment, rushing toward us at 125 miles per hour. When I got off that ride, shaking and dizzy, she was waiting for me at the exit. I ran to her and swept her up in my arms, spinning her around until we were both dizzy and laughing. "How long have you known?" I asked. 2 weeks. I wanted to tell you in a way you'd never forget. "Mission accomplished," I said, kissing her deeply. "So are we doing this? All of it? The whole thing?" She looked at me with those beautiful eyes, the same eyes I'd fallen in love with at Connor's bar, the same eyes that had haunted me through 2 years of heartbreak, the same eyes that would watch our children grow up. "We're doing this, Marcus Thompson. We're forging a life together, one that's going to last forever." And as the sun set behind the carnival lights, I held my wife-to-be and the mother of my child, thinking about the long road that had brought us here. Sometimes the steel has to go through the fire more than once before it comes out strong enough to last. Sometimes hearts have to be broken and mended before they learn to beat in perfect rhythm. But when they do, when two people finally learn to trust each other with everything they have, when they can dance in the rain and ride the scariest rides life has to offer, that's when you know the forge has done its work. That's when you know the heart is finally strong enough to last a lifetime. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.